The Chalcedon Foundation presents This Independent Republic, Studies in the Nature and Meaning of American History. Written by R.J. Rushdoony. Narrated by Nathan F. Conkey. Foreword by Mark Rousas Rushdoony. The republication of this work by my father is personally very gratifying. This was the first of his writings that I studied carefully. It was used as a text for an American history class I took as a senior at Fairfax Christian School in Fairfax, Virginia, some 30 years ago. Lectures and quizzes were based on the text, in which we were given prior reading assignments and encouraged to underline as we read. I used it soon afterward for college writing assignments, including one on the legal issues of the War of Independence, and later for teaching in Christian schools. I still use that personal copy. By repetitive use, it has come to have a lasting effect on my thinking. But most importantly, this series of essays gives important insight into American history by one who was more than an expert on the facts of America's history. His extensive reading, for over half a century he averaged well over a book a day, led him to an understanding of the ideas and individuals that have influenced history. Looking backward at American history, he could trace American development in terms of the ideas which gave it direction. At the heart of these ideas, he saw man's faith as determinative of the direction of his history. Culture, he would later say, is religion externalized. The author never dwelt on the factual trivia of history, though he came to have an amazing and almost encyclopedic knowledge of many subjects, but on the faith-based ideas behind its various movements. Individually and collectively, men act in terms of what they believe. History, like culture, is the outworking of what men and nations have believed. Therefore, what we believe makes a difference. What we believe about our nature, truth, the source of divinity and authority, our position in the cosmos, and ethics makes a profound impact on our thought and activity. The author of these essays was at his best in tracing the ideas which became flesh and blood, and all too often enslaved humanity and shed blood in history. In looking forward, however, we also determine our course by what we believe. This includes what we believe about our past. If Satan is the father of lies, then it behooves Christians to sort out the truth from the abundance of lies that too often control our thinking and us. To the extent that our thoughts and actions are governed by lies, we give ourselves over to service in the kingdom of man rather than of God. And after reading these essays, it will be apparent to the reader that the author would have no part in the modern notion that the United States was founded by secular deists. On the contrary, he saw an early America that was deeply steeped in a presumption of the truth of biblical faith and a Calvinistic perspective. The extent to which our founding fathers were, in fact, reflecting other non-Christian thinking is exceeded many times over by most of their modern critics. Much has changed since these essays were written in 1962, most notably the reserve of Christian capital in the minds and morals of Americans and the institutions of our nation has been largely spent. On the other hand, there are today perhaps more Christians who are willing to take action to reverse this trend, at least within the spheres of their familial and vocational authority. This was the focus of most of my father's work. He saw the great change in America as being one of a loss of Christian faith that was working its influence throughout the culture, replaced increasingly by an anti-Christian, humanistic faith. Thus, unlike many conservatives of the early 1960s, he did not see political action as a means of restoration. That, he believed, would only come from an increase in Christian faith and commitment and its outworking in society. These essays will greatly alter your understanding of and appreciation for American history. The discussions of the legal relationship between the Crown and colonies, prominent in legislative appeals of the time, is now rarely mentioned. The idea of sovereignty is addressed as a theological tenet foreign to colonial political thought and the Constitution. The importance of land is noted as a consequence of the belief in, quote, inheriting the land, end quote, as a future blessing, not an immediate economic asset. Scattered about these pages are little bombshells that will change how you understand much of American history. That federalism owed its familiar roots to the localism of feudalism, how property and its local control is a guarantee of liberty, that federal elections were long considered of less importance than local politics, that early American ideas attributed to democratic thought were based on religious ideas of communion and community, or how ludicrous is the modern notion of a mathematical concept of equality when applied to people. These essays do not represent mere flag-waving, however. They contain some controversial stands. The author chastises the North for its centralizing of authority to the detriment of liberty and the Constitution, yet he rejects the South's irresponsible counterposition of state sovereignty. He condemns both integration and segregation, this in 1962, as, quote, interferences with freedom of association, end quote. He strongly denounces statism, but is no friend of total democracy, and called John Locke something of a conservative hero, a majoritarian philosopher of the Glorious Revolution, which allowed for parliamentary absolutism. The author of these essays was never shy about taking a moral stand. He sought to make his outlook avowedly Christian and scriptural. To him, the Christian faith was about submitting life and thought to righteousness as revealed in God's Word. These essays are a small portion of his attempt to do that. Mark Rousas Rushdoony, May the 9th, 2001.